are in Hillsborough County. And somebody said, "Well, you're forgetting Sun City Center." We're like, "No, that's not a city. It's a community."
But here's why I said it. I did last week. Me and the wife and the grandchild just took a drive, and as I'm driving down the road, it said we're entering Sun City. I'm like, what? There's a Sun City and a Sun City Center. I told my wife, I said, we live downtown, baby. We live downtown. We're in the middle of it. I don't know what that distinction is, but yeah. So there are two, Sun City and Sun City Center. But good morning.
Well, good morning to you too. For all those people out there who have tuned in this morning. Listen, there's so much stuff that has happened this week in the world of politics and of business and current events that we could launch ourselves into. But we want to invite you to participate in the show as well. Only on this show in In Touch News do we use the Zoom call in number. So let me give you the call in number now. The call in number is 929 205 6099. Again, that's 929 205 6099. Now, you may be asked for a code. And if you are, the code to put in is 834 088 74026. Again, the code, if you're asked, you may not be. I don't know the rules of Zoom. When you get a code, you don't get a code. But if asked for a code, is 834 088 74026. So hopefully you'll tune in and maybe give us a call as we talk about. I mean, there's so much stuff. I think the one thing, Professor, that may fall in your basket is what's going to happen with schools. I mean, schools are set to reopen in the fall. I mean, there's clearly a lot of scuttlebutt between the federal, the state, and the districts on what happens.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting dynamic in the whole situation is what happens with a district's school. Let me back up. Let's do a little education here, because I think one of the things that's been happening with the viruses and the Black Lives Matter movement, we're learning about how our government actually works. You know, what the federal government can do, what the state can do, what cities can do, then what states can do when cities don't do what they want them to do, what the federal government can do when states don't like what they do. We're getting an education with Oregon and the feds coming in and some of the other stuff that we've been seeing. Mm-hmm. So let's try this out. Here's how most states operate. In a given county, the state authorized the creation of an individual authority to govern schools. An elected body was created within each county. They run for office, they're elected, and they're like their own quasi entity within a county. They're not subject to the county commissioners. They're not subject to the mayor. They are their own entity. And then inside of that, you have the overarching state government system, which kind of sets the guidelines, standards, things of that nature. But then it's up to the school district to determine how they carry it out. For example,
right,
the state may say all school districts in our state must have X number of school days.
Right.
And then the district decides, okay, how are we going to do that? You know, what day we're going to start, what holidays we're going to take, and what day we're going to finish. Things of that nature. And then the state sets the standard for, you know, passing grades and things of that nature. And then the district decides how you're going to go about doing that. The feds don't play very much role in that. They in fact, they play almost no role. In fact, Professor, you'll love this. For years, Republicans have been saying, stay out of local school district business.
Exactly. Take that Common Core away. Let the states run their own system.
Exactly. And for that reason, certain states can't recruit. They can't hire. If you get a high school degree from certain states, certain companies won't even talk to you. You know why? Because that state school district is doing what in the heck they want to do. I'm not saying anything about West Virginia. I'm just saying you get a high school diploma from certain states, it's like you don't have anything. I didn't say anything about Mississippi. All I'm saying is, and then you go to other states where you get a high school degree, like Virginia, like Washington State,
mm-hmm.
it's almost like a college degree because of the sophistication of the education system and the student that they produce. That's the result of a local school district deciding how and what they're going to run. So here we are today. We've got the coronavirus having impacted the school system. And now we're trying to figure out what do we do with the students? Well, our dear leader, Donald Trump, came out 3 months ago almost without any facts, any data, any science to back him up and said schools must open. And but for the Republican controlled districts, there was a gigantic roar of laughter because everybody knew you don't decide that. You can say it all you want to.
But that also, when it's characterized like that or framed like that, it always says, well, the president can't say anything. But then when you want him to say something and he doesn't say anything, well, he's not leading. But when he said something that only, like you said, the Republican led states
Keep going,
didn't have an
Professor.
issue with it. Democrat led states did.
Because I want to distinguish two things. Saying something and leading are not the same thing. And you can lead without saying something. So Certainly. Him saying something doesn't equate to leading. And particularly when you didn't say, you just used words, came out and there was some noise. If you actually led, that will be different. And so I think that's the trap that he is in. So let's get down to it. The question is right now, do we open schools or do we not? What are your thoughts about opening in-person classes?
I think the president was spot on 3 months ago. And if you want to go and look at it, you can look at the international data. It supports the president. The CDC supports the president. If you look back at their, the director also said the same thing. Our state educational commissioner, Clarkman, or whatever his name is, said the same thing last week. It is more than just academics that we're talking about. The data also suggests, and we've been knowing this, but in this political climate, no one wants to see the data for what it really says. They want to make the data support their narrative. But the science says that the disease is not carried, spread to any degree that should stop schools. Now that's not my spin on. That's just what it says. So when Donald Trump said that 3 months ago, he was being Donald Trump. And while he couldn't offer anything of substance, it bears itself out because it is true. They've had congressional hearings where they've been grilling Dr. Fauci just like they did just last week. And Dr. Fauci had to, he's one that doesn't take a lot of ownership. So it was painful watching him. He's definitely not a alpha male. Answers questions because he's scared that the Democrats are going to come swinging, and then you have people like Congressman Jordan who's going to gut punch him every time he comes back to the right. So this guy's just trying to duck and say these nice things about, well, I didn't really say, I don't condone this. Well, dude, say what you mean. Just say it and get out the way, and then let the other two sides go. But he keeps opining on these things. He wags the system. So let's get back to what you asked. So we should open the school systems. I know Orange County, where I lived for 15 years, I just looked it up. They're the ninth largest school district, Hillsborough County being the eighth. Hillsborough is giving parents a choice, and it should fall to the parents, just as Maxine Waters said, and she double talked herself during the hearings as well. It should fall to the parents. Well, it falls to the school districts, but you want to give the parent the choice. Hillsborough right now, I think they put it off to August 3rd before they make their final decision.
Yeah, and there was a split option. You had an online or in-person option about a week or so ago. That was on the play. Let me say this though. I know one way I can definitely keep my kids safe.
And what
that is keep my kid home.
Here's why that can't be true.
I'm just saying, no. That's what I'm trying to say is you have to drill down to each individual situation. There are kids who are homeschooled their whole life, and they do fine. They do fine.
And there's some who don't do fine. But we don't talk
Absolutely.
about that
And
stat.
why? I'll tell you this though, and there's some that go to school 18 years and they stink it up still. I mean, there's no. I mean, Hillsburg. I mean, Pinellas County has one of the lowest graduation rates for African American males. I want to say it's in maybe high 30s%.
And then Hillsborough County is not that much better. It's what 50-some%,
Yeah, just think
upper
about this.
40.
Of 50% of all ninth graders that start, black males in Hillsborough County, don't graduate. Now, that doesn't mean that they academically fail. There are a lot of things that happen. They drop out, whatever it may be. And some of it, I think what they were saying was, even if you relocate, they count it against the district. So if I start ninth grade and I leave the school, that counts as a non-graduation. So some of that can be a but I think you have to drill down to each individual to look at it. My first thing as a parent, I'm thinking about my child's safety. And guess what Donald Trump has done so effectively? He's created so much ambiguity. I don't really know what is safe beyond keeping my child home. I don't know. I
Well, you
can't
can
trust
place
Dr.
that
Fauci.
blame.
I've been Dr. Fauci. I can't trust Dr. Fauci. I just don't trust any of it.
Well, how do you put that? Donald Trump hasn't wavered. He said go back to school.
Yeah, but he's
Like you said,
yeah,
3 months ago.
Based off nothing though, so I don't trust him. But bigger than
But
that,
based off of nothing then. But the science is
bigger
there.
than that,
We have the same data.
But it depends on who's giving you the data. He beats up on the CDC half the time. He sends his minions out to write this thing about Fauci. I don't know who's selling what and why, but I tell you this about Donald Trump: he's always up to something. I don't think the. I mean, he's like watching JR off Dallas.
You just dated yourself, but I'm with you.
Listen,
though.
I was watching Dallas the other day.
It still comes on.
Yes, it does. It's on streaming. And Miss Ellie said this to JR. She said, so for those who don't know, Miss Ellie is JR's mama. And here's what Miss Ellie said, the most credible person on sitcom drama back in the late 70s and 80s. She said, JR, you have no redeeming qualities. That's his mama talking. That's what the mama said. That's what his mama said. That's Donald Trump. So we're stuck in this. So no, we beat this up. So I don't know. We're gonna figure it out in a minute whether or not we go back to school or not. But let me move on to another topic because I could talk about that all day. Let's touch on this little thing this thing that Trump based his whole before we get to that, let's talk about this real quick. John Lewis.
Right.
I thought it was a little much. It was a little much. Every day I turned on and there was more John Lewis. And they kept saying, John Lewis crosses the bridge again for the last time again. Yeah. Okay, and the hearse is stopping here at his favorite spot, but it's not an official stop. I mean, he planned out his, I get it. A little much for me. It was a little bit much. The thing that really bothered me, and I guess it's normal, he's a politician, has been a politician for 40 years, the weight of the politicalness of the entire thing.
Okay.
I just felt politics from beginning, and I just was, gosh, I'd rather hear some good songs, some good stories, and then poor Obama. I mean, he was pulling for his usual rhetorical oration, and I just thought it was a lot of politics in it.
Okay.
So much so that Trump couldn't even be there. That's really the signal to it.
I'm glad you said that because I told my wife, I knew she was up to something. I didn't hear her upstairs during the whole funeral, and so I'll go downstairs and she's there. Figured she was waiting on Obama too. So he finally shows up, and you're right, he does his thing. So the first thing that jumped out is, okay, it's real politics here. He can't help himself. This is vintage Obama. And by that, vintage Obama means he's charismatic, he's funny, but that's a typical Obama speech. What wasn't typical, he had 5 biblical references. I don't remember 5 biblical references in 8 years, other than the National Day of Prayer from President Obama, because he didn't like to offend anybody. He's such a charismatic speaker. So he's playing to the day. He's in a church. He's in Ebenezer Church. Of course, historic. He has to play to the day. But he was playing a little more than that. And all of the political swipes at Trump, and, he even, as much as he probably didn't want to because he blamed a lot on GW, he even nodded what GW may have done, and George Bush is there. Way too political. I thought that was inappropriate to say the least. And it's not like he didn't know. He even said it. This is not what we normally do, but then he goes and puts it on John Lewis. This is what he would want to do. No, it's what you wanted to do. But yeah.
That's my thing though. I bet there was some coordination with John Lewis. He wrote a letter. I got the feeling he planned a lot of that himself. Um,
Well,
you
maybe
know,
following it. I mean, I don't
I
know.
just got to feel that it felt so plain. Everything seemed so timed out, planned out. I don't think some committee put that together. I think that was kind of a flavor of things. I thought it was interesting that he referenced things that Reagan did, that Bush did, that Clinton did, and then he would say, but then Trump, like this
Exactly.
guy. But the politicalness of it, some of it, the fact that there was a small contingent of Democrats from the House of Representatives that Nancy Pelosi recognized. And then there was only one, I think, one or two senators. And I thought, wow, there are no Republicans that have the decency to show up and show their respect because this is so political, unless I missed that.
Well, here's the thing. That I think that's the impression they wanted to give because if you're going to concede that it has something to do with John Lewis writing and how he wanted his funeral. It may be the same as Elijah Cummings. I don't want him here, and these are the people I want there. And the Democrats, and I just hate to say it, but I feel this way, so I'll say this is my personal opinion. The Democrats will even use that funeral to drive away. See, Republicans don't care about
Well,
it.
about
They may
that,
not
I just
just
say
been
this:
invited.
Democrats throw better funerals than Republicans. I mean, there's a lot more flavor and just a lot more dynamic to it. We just do a better job. I'm just sorry, I don't, you know, I mean,
Now, here's the other point that I saw, and maybe it's just me being the dude in the red shirt. How many people were at that funeral? Would you say?
I don't,
A
it
good
was
crowd.
not a full crowd, but and I was very concerned about the social distancing. And at first, I was like, "My God, they're not social distancing," but then they changed the angle of the camera,
Mm-hmm.
and okay, that will make sense. Then they do have them spaced out well. Those guys, but I thought, wow, a lot of people showed up for the funeral. They were wearing masks. Most of them were masked up and stuff. But I was very concerned about that. And from the applause, you could see this. There was it wasn't a packed church. I think they said there were 30 state representatives. I mean, congressmen there. There
Okay,
were
so
30 of
let's
them
say it's
there.
30. You probably know he had more than 30 family members there because they all came and
I
got a
don't,
photo
they may
op with him.
have. I've had funerals in my family since the virus started, and they've been very restrictive on what you
But you didn't
can.
have President Obama at yours, though. What I'm saying
Yeah, they
is,
probably would have called Uncle Rufus and said, "Listen,
oh, yeah,
Obama's
they had
coming,
way
you
more
can't
there.
come." But
Here's my point.
they would have called Uncle Rufus and Uncle Rufus, you can't show up. Obama's got your seat. You can't come.
Here's
And
my
that may be
point.
why they had the multiple days of things to try to accommodate some of that. But, I don't know.
But here's what I thought was ironic, and to a very small degree, I think I could use the term hypocritical. The Democrats, while they haven't come out and just attacked church attendance, they need
You
for
mean
that also.
saying the risk factors of going to church?
Exactly. The same thing they were calling Dr. Fauci on. You put your opinion out there, you opine on everything that seems to lead to people staying home, but you don't want to say that same thing with the same energy about protesting. Now, I don't want to go there just yet, but at that funeral, I thought there were enough people there that a church bigger than Ebenezer who can accommodate social distancing could have done that. But they make it so political and so you're putting people in harm's way to even have church attendance. But you'll do that for John
Listen,
Lewis.
I was going to save this, but you know, I was going to save it for later. All those things are setups. you know, at the Tulsa rally,
Uh huh.
there was 7,500 people,
Uh huh.
no social distancing.
Uh huh.
It was actually discouraged. Seat spacings were removed. Um, Things of that nature were done to encourage people to be closer together.
How many people got contracted COVID from that rally? What does contact tracing tell us about that?
The
All
only
that's
one I
rhetorical. It
right
tells us nothing.
the only person I know who was there that I know, I'm
Uh
just
huh.
saying that I mean
Herman Cain.
everybody had an explosion is the Herman Cain situation.
Exactly.
He's
But
the
my
only one I
point
could
is,
drill down to, and I don't know if they are contract chasing because there's so many people with the virus.
well, but again, going back to how politicized this is. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it again on this show. I said it last week and the week before. This is the only thing that suppresses Trump's numbers: unrest and this pandemic. These investigations, the court hearings, put a small dent in Trump, but he moved on. The guy knows how to get around that stuff. This, we have to keep church down. We have to polarize every gathering of Trump and poor Herman Cain. And here's why: poor Herman Cain. Even Maxine Waters, I watched that hearing, and maybe I missed it. I said that's going to go back, but it's so hard, it's so boring to watch a C-SPAN, a hearing on C-SPAN. You just have to have nothing to do on that day to watch a C-SPAN congressional hearing. But when she invoked Herman Cain's name, she said, and to the family of Herman Cain, he's just dead. He died. And he attended the funeral, the Tulsa rally. And I'm going, well, what does that have to do with why you're there? And where is the compassion? Where is the sincerity in, Herman Cain, valiant, great businessman? It's unfortunate. None of that. Just to point out he attended the rally and he did. He died. I mean, it's.
But that's what we are though now, Professor, and that's really the scary part about Donald Trump as president.
And how does that get to be Donald Trump's fault?
I'll tell you why. He has lowered the bar on public discourse so low. He has his standard, and the standard he set for this country. He's moved it so low that's nothing compared to stuff that he says about people that's unsolicited.
Here's the thing.
That's what leadership is about, though. He set the floor. That his standard, and the president. What was somebody saying the other day? What the president says, I think it was Nancy Pelosi. She said, "What the president says at all times matters." Because people base their thoughts, ideas, plans on what comes from it, and it has dominated the world for 60 years. What the president says matters, and so this president, what he say, it matters. So now you have other leaders going, "Hey, look, I guess the new way that we go about doing this is we go as low as we can." I don't like it,
But see, that's shifting responsibility, because rather he lowered the bar, and I'm not agreeing with that. Rather he lowered the bar or not, it just exposes who they really are. People like to say, "Well,
and so you want see, leadership is about getting people beyond what they would get on their own, getting more out of them they think they can get, elevating where they will stop at to the next level." And so you're right. I agree. I absolutely agree with you. That is what she is. She probably is it can be a vitriolic and so on and so forth. But in the presence of someone who she reveres, respects, things of that nature, and this has not been just here in this situation. This has been coming. I think the low point for me before that was when, I can't think of the congressman's name, but when Obama makes his first State of the Union speech and somebody stands up and says, "You lie."
You lie. Yeah.
That lowered the bar. I mean, it immediately, now he tried to hold his ground and move on. But I just think we're in a place. So pointing out Maxine Waters, something she might say, and she's not the standard bearer.
And Nancy Pelosi and Chuck. We can point. It's just not her.
They don't say. They're more polished in what they say.
No. Boy, we don't hear the same. We don't hear the same news bites, because Maxine Waters is very vulgar at times. Nancy Pelosi just nice, nasty, as we say in the South.
Exactly. We're more used to that. So, but my takeaway from the John Lewis funeral was, an iconic figure, being lost, um, and trying to understand and put his legacy in the perspective. And I just would have rather not had so much politics in it. I would have loved to be in a place where President Trump can appear at something of that nature, rally the country behind what's positive and good. I mean, think about this. Reagan signed Martin Luther King's bill creating it a holiday. I mean, I couldn't imagine Donald Trump having the wherewithal or to set that up. And that could have easily been a bury the hatchet process. But I think he just has created this, everything's against everything right now. You know,
But
you know,
you act as though politics and Congress and decorum to any degree had changed somehow to the worst, like it wasn't already in decline. Because you just said the president sets the bar, right?
yes.
And if that's the case, then Barack Obama set that bar for that congressman to yell it out. If it's all on the president, then how did that happen under Obama?
Well,
he must have set that bar.
No, he just got there in January. I mean,
okay, so now we have the exception.
The man had just showed up. He just got there. I think he did a great, and I'll tell you how he set the bar. There were a number of moments throughout his presidency where Obama took a high road in his decorum with the folks that he dealt with. But what it doesn't make, I don't remember him using profanity, berating reporters, sending out nasty tweets about people. That was, there was
he didn't have to do that. The media did that for him. There was a love fest. It was a horrible love fest for the first 4 years. I mean, they drooled over him. He didn't have to say a thing. Just send out his henchmen. He didn't have to do that.
Yeah, that's pretty standard. So, I mean, anyway, I just think that hopefully we can get to a place where we don't have these kinds of, I guess, quasi-funeral politics that control and dictate, what next. The one thing I would like to say, I like the idea of renaming the Civil Rights Act the John Lewis Civil Rights Act. If in fact it's, we get it extended like it should be. I think that would be a nice tribute to him.
Yeah, and it would be extended. So he could have mentioned Trump.
You think Trump will think Trump will? You think he? I don't think he will. He seems to be doing everything he can to undercut election stuff.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he could have mentioned Obama could have mentioned Trump's thing on the prison reform that he didn't do. He could have mentioned that. I mean, all in the same vein.
What's that got to do with John Lewis? That affects African Americans. What's that got to do with John Lewis?
The same thing about what GW did affect John. Nothing affected John Lewis. What I'm saying
no. He extended the civil. That's why That's why they mentioned it. That was a connecting piece that they, put in. And I thought it was great. And think about this: John Lewis didn't go to Bush's inauguration because he thought he was an illegitimate president. And here,
Bush is not a friend of Trump. So anything that probably, slightly make him look bad, and we'll talk more about that. I think those never Trumper Republicans, we need to go to break in a minute.
I'm going to take one more shot here. You mentioned that GW is not a friend of Donald Trump.
Right.
I don't think Donald Trump has any friends or has ever had any friends. With that, we're going to take a quick break here on In Touch News and step away. We got to, and we'll come back in a few minutes and bring up a couple more topics, talk a little bit about the economy, and we need to talk about this Herman Cain thing a little bit more. You listen to In Touch News Radio, reality radio, where everybody can be a star. We'll be right back.
This is the recipe you've been waiting for. A little bit of smooth mixed with a lot of soul.
A real player.
You're listening to In Touch Radio.
The storks are bringing me a baby brother. We can do this together.
All right, let's go.
Storks know how to keep kids safe. Do you?
What?
Oh my gosh, you don't know.
I know.
You don't? Oh man, you laugh when you're uncomfortable.
No.
Making sure your child is in the right car seat is one of the steps to safer travel.
I will rock this. You will rock this.
To know for sure that your child is in the right car seat for their age and size, visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat. Cool. Very cool. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It's important to plan ahead for emergencies, like the storm. When it kicked in, we had a plan. Separated. We were able to
all
get in touch with each other
and had
in
no
no time.
idea how to find each other.
The whole experience was
was the
fine.
most frightening 10 hours of my life.
If there's one piece of advice I'd offer other moms out there, it's to stay
it's
calm
don't
and keep
ignore
to the
this
plan.
message.
Some parents plan ahead, some don't. Make sure you know where to find your family in an emergency. Start your plan at ready.gov. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Hey, this is Tampa Bay Tammy. Don't forget to pick up your copy of In Touch News.
In Touch Radio, where you can listen to a cruising flow of smooth soul and jazz, today's R&B, a fun touch of hip-hop and gospel.
All my music on one station.
Giving you a buffet of music, news, and entertainment. We're In Touch Radio.
All right, we are back live on Music News Radio. Reality Radio, everybody can be a star. My name is Clinton Paris, and I am the co-host of State of the Middle with none other than the professor himself, Professor Tony Seabrook, educating the youths of America. Professor, so we talked a little bit about...
You know, I have to always stop you there. You always slight our non-traditional students.
I'm for the SATOA students as well, students over the traditional age.
Who make up the larger percentage of those coming into the...
Absolutely. I worked in the tutoring lab as an undergrad. I can appreciate our, we will see. So anyway, so we've rambled on a little bit about schools reopening and about unemployment, and we touched on this thing with John Lewis.
Well, we hadn't talked about the unemployment.
We hadn't talked about unemployment. Okay, let's talk about that then. Let's talk about unemployment.
Have those numbers come out? No, they hadn't come out yet because they come out like...
Well, let's start with the first thing. Before Donald Trump was elected, what did he say every week? Those are not real numbers. Mm-hmm. Whatever the numbers were.
Because he was talking about something else. He's not... We all know. And if you don't, and I'm going to say this, if you don't agree that Donald Trump's numbers are low, if you take the pandemic
what numbers
out,
low?
Donald Trump is leading in the polls. If you take this pandemic out of the equation, Donald Trump is leading in the polls, even in the midst of the social justice.
Hold on, wait a minute. Let me back up. Before the pandemic, Donald Trump was behind Biden.
That was a ghost, but who believed before the pandemic, who really believed that the dude who is prone, who's gaffe prone, who barely does any real interview, who really believed, other than someone who just hates Trump, who really believed that Joe Biden was in the lead? He needed a bounce to come out of the South to even be relevant. So we all of a sudden think the guy who said nothing of substance yet, is leading? Come on.
You know why you can believe that? That's just how bad Donald Trump is. That's how bad he is.
But
he's that bad that a rock sitting by a river can have a higher approval rating than him. He's just that. That's the piece. He's just that bad. And like you said,
he's good for the economy.
I didn't even know that the economy was chugging along fine before he showed up.
Well, that's what we would think. And I'm going to find those numbers that show that in the, what was the last year, was the last 2 years, at least in the last year that Obama's numbers were shrinking job-wise. Because y'all like to say he inherited that thing.
So let me give it to you again. I've said this before in America. Please listen up. You have my permission to take notes. If your neighbor invites you over to show you all the new furniture he's bought and new car he's got, he said, man, you won't believe this. I got a line of credit for $500,000. Look how well I am doing. Got me a new car. We've redecorated the house, bought my wife some jewelry, so on and so forth. And you would stand there and say, hey, buddy, I don't think you're doing so well, because that's not really your money. That's the bank's money. You got to repay that. That's Trump's economy. It's on loan. It's on borrowed money.
Paint it that way, frame it that way all you want. His numbers His numbers were good. His polling was better.
Only if you don't add in the deficit that he created.
Okay.
If you don't look at it, you got it. I'm telling you, Professor, you can't just look at the money that comes in. You got to look at the money that goes out. And
well, I understand that.
So if you look at the economy and say, hey, we're creating all these jobs, all this economic activity, and you can say, oh, here's how we're affording that with deficits. It doesn't make sense. So I don't know where we get this whole he has this great economy. And the crazy part is it seems like all of a sudden Republicans, real Republicans and conservatives are waking up going, we just can't just keep giving away money, can we?
Well, let me tell you why they're waking up. You just touched on what I was touching on before the break. This is yet another opportunity for them, and they're keeping their heads down.
Who's them, though?
The non-Trumpers, the never Trumpers.
I didn't reference. I was talking about real Republicans and conservatives.
Well, no. And many of them were, but here's the thing: he beat those never Trumpers.
I don't doubt that. I mean, yeah, he did. But
so yeah, now
doesn't make you better.
Now going into an election year, this is a chance to come back to who I said I was. We can't continue to do this. Well, you didn't say anything before, but now Trump's on the road, and I can come out and say, you know what, we can't. I being one of these people you're referring to, we can't continue this, because this is not what we're made of. Well, we weren't ever made of that, according to you, but you didn't say that before. You asked those questions about those very same people. What happened to the fiscal Republicans? What happened to them? What happened to that? Because
I'll tell you what happened to them. They got Paul Ryan. They got run out of town. That's what happened to him. He got run out of. The Republicans and conservatives that would lend some fiscal, responsibility.
Right.
They got run out of town. They literally literally told get out, and they were. So you're left with these you're left with a very weak body of Republicans.
But you're referring to people that you said those fiscal Republicans are now asking. So they're not all gone. Guess where they are? They're just holding their head down because they're scared to hold up with Trump.
Hey, listen, I think there was a breakthrough this week. And if I could shift over to talk about, because the economy is, there's not a lot going on there. With 11% unemployment with no plan. But put the kids back in school. So, but let's go to what I think really jumped out at me this week about it's an election issue. Donald Trump hints that, with so much going on, we probably can't have the election on the 3rd. We can't have there's a lot happening. We may need to figure out something else. And Mitch McConnell shot it down. That was what I thought was interesting.
What was interesting about it? His comment,
because he's not.
Damn, which one?
Usually Mitch McConnell comes and Donald Trump says we're going to get rid of Obamacare, and Mitch McConnell comes out and says, "Well, we're waiting on the president to give us his plan for, health care." And he usually he kind of fuddles along a little bit. And I'll wait to hear what the president has to say about it. I didn't hear those comments. I'm really talking about Mitch McConnell came out and said, "Look, we've always had our election, on first Tuesday of November." The election is going to happen on the first Tuesday. And I thought that's a turning point, I think, for him.
It's not for Mitch McConnell?
Yeah, for Mitch McConnell.
It would have been a turning point had he gone on with that crazy idea. It's never been delayed.
Wait. Are you saying that Donald Trump's idea is a crazy idea?
Of course. And here's the thing. I think Donald Trump is just, like he does. He said that for a reason, to take your mind off of something else that's going on. He wants you to think, yeah, I really want that. So he's going to get the Democrats all fired up, and they are. They've been all over him for that.
Right. It is, though, because we already expected he lacks respect for various institutions. So this is not a surprise that he would, put this out there. But the other component to that is he did it because we just suffered the largest contraction in GDP in the second quarter ever. That's what he's trying to cover.
Well, maybe so. So because we're still talking about the economy. So when we look at that, we also have Obama and Biden. Well, we just say Obama. We never get that 2.1%. We won't ever see those days again until enter Donald J. Trump. But you guys are going to shoot how he got there. But those numbers came back. But it's all relative. If the economy is suppressed, if the mentality of the American people is always hijacked because you want to keep them scared. Don't even take your kids back to school. Because guess what? You let the kids go back to school, the parents can now focus on what's going on because things will have some type of, maybe things are getting back to normal. But Democrats don't want things back to normal because there's a slight chance A slight chance that's bigger than slight if things give the appearance of going back to normal and those numbers start to go up. They got to let Crazy Joe have a conference somewhere and let him shoot himself in the foot. They don't want to do that. So keep
I don't know
the
about
American
that.
people
But
scared.
just think about this. Donald Trump created a perception of collapse of all things good in America. And I remember the phrase that he used to sum it all up. I alone can fix it. So for you to say that the Democrats are planning or pointing out that we're coming apart, that's the Donald Trump playbook. And he finished and summed it up with I alone can fix it. Well,
only Democrats were bothered by that. I don't remember the comment. It doesn't, even if he said it to me.
No, it's one of his greatest quotes.
Okay, well, but here's the thing. Only Democrats are bothered by that.
I'm pointing out to say that his campaign and his whole aura was around the wrongs of America, how horrible things. So you're saying that, look, Democrats are trying to paint this picture of doom and gloom and use that as a take.
Trying.
I mean, I don't know we had a 32% drop in gross domestic product for Q2. I don't know if that's Democrats' fault to point out that's the biggest drop ever.
But it's a result of the pandemic. So it's all relative. These things aren't joined.
Look, Katrina was a hurricane. So what? You're the president, deal with it.
Exactly.
Obama had the banking collapse.
Okay.
Hey, you gotta get it, you gotta get in there and deal with it. And Obama dealt with he came with a plan, executed the plan, he took, complaints and hits and got us out of it. The problem Donald Trump has is, and it's just unfortunate, is he is such a horrible leader. And the realities of all this stuff I think it's too much for him.
Well, I won't argue his leadership style or his management style. We know he fires people. He has a sensitive personality. We all get that. But at the same time, to say that the contracting GDP, the job loss, the unemployment, the American morale is not all relative to the pandemic, I think it's just disingenuous at the most. I mean, at the least. I mean, come on. It's all relative. There's nothing that's out of place. It's all relative to the pandemic. Take the pandemic out. Leave in the George Floyd. Take the pandemic out. Donald Trump's numbers are not as bad. The American morale, the American position is not as bad. Leave in the George Floyd because we've always dealt with injustice to African Americans. So if you leave that in, hate to say it, you can leave in such a tragic killing of George Floyd and Donald Trump's numbers won't be as bad. The pandemic has proven to Democrats, we keep this. Hold the line. Keep the kids at home. Scare them. Don't let them get the hydroxychloroquine.
No, it's not the pandemic. What it is Donald Trump's response to the pandemic. From the beginning, it's not a big deal. China's got it. He soft pedaled it at first when people were like, hey, people around here dying. Just because they weren't dying near him. And he's like, I'm good. I mean, everybody's good here. Well, everybody around you is getting tested. I think that's what hurt him is not the pandemic. It's his response to the pandemic.
I would agree he could have done it differently, but I cannot agree and say that Congress, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, all those people weren't complicit because they were still trying to get him they were still on this impeachment thing. They were still dragging him wherever they could to take him off of what he should be doing. It was all an orchestrated plan. It goes
Mitch McConnell, when Obama got elected, Mitch McConnell stated his goal.
I'm making a one-term president.
So this is just the world you live in. You know what I mean?
You act as though, so it has to be stated for that to be the mission of the opposing party. Someone has to say, I want to make you a one-term president. Only thing that's different was Mitch McConnell had the nerve to say that. It's always been the opposing party mission to make that opposing.
But I mean, what's your issue though?
What's my issue with who?
That with Schumer and Nancy Pelosi,
because they were downplaying it too. Neither one of them came out and look, we need to pause this impeachment.
They're not the president.
They are not, but they were trying to take the president down. They didn't have anything.
Of course they are. He's got to figure his way forward and avoid that.
So if you can see that while America is now, what we didn't know then in January, we didn't know the impact to the economy. 6 months later, now we're at this point where it's devastated our way of life. Every person in America has now been affected. We didn't know that in January. But what we do know in January is that the Congress was the Democrat made it their mission to take this president down in the midst of what we now know is something more. It's just the detriment from it is something we couldn't have imagined. But we do have, because the good thing about the internet is we won't be at loss of what
only difference was this. The difference in Trump and what Congress has been able to do with him versus the Congress with Obama was clean.
Obama was clean. You're right.
Trump's. I mean, he was
right.
No drama. Obama. He never got caught with his hand anywhere. I mean, they tried, but I mean, but Donald Trump pushes every envelope everywhere. Unrelentingly, so it makes it easier for him to be the target of being, taking incoming.
Now I agree.
And if he would just leave, for example, and I know this is not on our list of topics, and we're gonna get to Biden's VP last, is he said stuff that just gets him in trouble, like the issue about suburban, moms and families. You're gonna be safe because we're gonna keep the low income people out. I mean, he just does that kind of stuff, and it just comes. My son was just berating about this, and I spent 20 minutes trying to explain to him why someone would be worried about their property values, why that would make sense to someone, and he kept saying, "But that's a horrible thing to speak when we are all supposed to be working to help everybody get better." I mean, he basically, anyway. So we only got a few minutes left, Professor. I want to make sure we get time to talk about this. We're rounding up to the end. Joe's going to announce his VP candidate. Who do you think it is, and what do you think about whoever he might be picking?
I have no idea who it is. I read the other day about whatever blow up between one of the senators on his VP vetting committee. That person and Kamala Harris, or her campaign or her people, had some words about how he framed her attack on Joe in one of the debates, and that she had no remorse and blah, blah, blah. So she wouldn't be a loyal second person.
She might be out. She can't recover from that.
Well, the campaign tends to think differently. I agree with you. But I also agree that a Kamala Harris would make an excellent, she would be a good number two. And I think she could bring the heat. Very intelligent woman, has the experience, and would give the Democrats kind of what they want in that number two, and the possible be a number one. You can't, we can just imagine all the tweets about or hashtags about the melanin if she's number two. And we already know Joe is a shaky number one. So I think that's good. I don't know who else it could be. I mean, unfortunately, and I'm not just throwing this out there to bring things, but Andrew Gillum is not a possibility. I'm not sure about Stacey Abrams. I mean, because he said it. It's going to be a black person. I mean, he telegraphed that. Guess what? Because he's playing to his base. Ain't going to be a black person. If it's not Kamala Harris, it's not going to be a black person. And I hope every black Democrat holds him to that and punishes him for even saying it. Because he only said it just to appease the blacks.
I wish people could see my face. But they
can't.
Can. You can.
In that presidential.
But they can't see me on the radio.
Or you're fading into the image, though, but okay.
Okay, so
tell me where I'm wrong. Because he really meant that he's going to get a black person?
He's going to get somebody black. This election is going to be about turning out the black vote. So got to get somebody black. Top candidates that I'm hearing are Karen Bass out of California and Susan Rice. Now,
Susan Rice and Joe Biden, I can see an inquiry in the first 100 days. We're going to have them the same way y'all had Trump in court. Put Susan Rice on that ticket if you want to.
Yeah, that's who I'm hearing. I think they need someone who will get the people in the South excited. That's my concern right now is Abrams might be, the person, but she lost, so that's one of the issues.
Well, there was also the former, I don't know if she's police chief, but Demings. They had her name in the basket.
Well, I think the top candidate, it's going to surprise everybody, is Keisha Bottoms. She's the one. She's gotten a lot of FaceTime during this coronavirus. She's shown she's up for the fight with what happened with her and the governor of Georgia. She's got a big southern city. She's youngish. She's attractive. She's energetic. I think she would get a lot of. You could run her through that whole southern belt, and she might flip Texas. Due to the excitement of the voters. So, and I think she definitely would bring a lot of excitement out of Florida. So, in theory, she might could flip Georgia, flip Florida, and give him a helpful hand out in Texas. That might be, to me, might be the pick to go with.
Or
that would be the pick. That would be my pick.
I'm pulling for Susan Rice.
Susan, I just don't know that Susan Rice
has
a constituency. She doesn't have a constituency.
She doesn't have a constituency. No, that personality can't really hold up either. I mean, it's not like she's, you just wait to hear what she has to say.
Right. I don't think, I know. Now, you've got to have you're second and they have to be able to cover you, and let me say this. Pence has been a very good vice president. He sounds like he sold his soul to the devil to do it and disavowed all things he lived for. But I think he's been effective VP for Donald Trump. Now, I really do. He covers his back well. He comes in and cleans up whatever mess Trump leaves on the floor. And I would like to think that Keisha, Ms. Bottoms, from watching her, dealing with the virus and things, she caught the virus. She had it.
She caught the virus?
Yeah, she had the virus. Yeah,
I thought you did something. Okay.
Yeah, she had the virus, had the quarantine, and her and her family was all everybody. She tested positive, rather. You said that way.
She didn't do the hydroxychloroquine. She didn't.
Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge. I know, but I know that she tested positive at one point, and so on and so forth. So that's my pick. That's why I would like to see get it. Susan Rice, I think, is an establishment pick. There are people within the Obama world who want her, I think, the Hillary world, and that may be driving Susan Rice to the forefront. But I just
let me just throw this over the fence. You put Susan Rice on that ticket, one, it'll make every Republican just happy. And we're okay with that because as soon as they get sworn in, we're going to start our indictment papers too. I mean, and then because we're going to tie her to Bill Clinton in those papers that were released. So anyway, from the pedophile island or whatever, little girl island, whatever that is that Epstein and Clinton were tied together.
Well, hold on for a minute. Now, so I did the detailed lookup of the list of people involved with that. That list is just all over the place. The guy was a major political.
There wasn't no pro people on it, was it?
No, for example, I was looking at that list, and the list of those people, it was clear. A lot of those people that were involved with flying on his plane and stuff, they were just on his plane. They were just, and I've been now advised that people can see me, so they can see my face. So that is funny stuff on the YouTube page, yeah. But we'll leave that. We'll talk about Epstein on another day. What is your prediction for this week? What do we have coming up this week that you think people should be looking out for, Professor?
I don't know if it's going to happen this week, but the relief bill needs to happen. And this is what frustrates me about Congress altogether is why do each party have to throw the crap in the bill to delay the relief?
Like a new FBI building?
Man, well, from my understanding, it's $29 billion worth of pork on the Republican side, but 130 something on the Democrat side. Now, that's just how I think it's been divvied up, but still, that's what I see coming. At least more on that, because that really is what the American people need to hear. There are people who are still struggling with this. And I think we've lost, we've lost the counselor. So it'll be up to me just to end the show. So thank you all for listening. We'll be back next Saturday. We are supposed to have a guest, and she's out of the great state of Georgia, Miss Yvette Brown. So tune in for that. Everyone be safe. The coronavirus is real. And don't be like my neighbors and have these get-togethers in the garage just because you have the garage door up. Don't do that. So we're signing off straight up the middle. In Touch News. We'll see you next week.